grocery stores. A challenge that we highlighted was the cutoff of Fremont Avenue. So it's, well, I don't have a visual, but it is one of the few streets that is actually cut off, that has no bridge or connection across the highway. On the opposite side, we also noted how right on the other side of the West Baltimore Mark, there's how the Franklin Mulberry kind of split, and it creates a very dangerous kind of pedestrians trying to get to the station, trying to cross over. So basically at both ends, there's a big connection, walkability issue. And then preservation, we mentioned the Katie Williams Funeral Home. This is Schroeder and Mulberry, and the preservation of some of the historic churches along that corridor. And so, again, a lot of opportunities, challenges, and things for preservation. That's what we wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you, group number one. Group number two, one opportunity, one challenge, and one preservation opportunity.
Okay. One opportunity, transit orientation development opportunity, which would allow the community to have huge development over the TOD areas that run throughout the neighborhood. So it would help us with population density, revenue taxes for the city, and different things like that. So that's the opportunity that we see be great. And the second part was
Challenge.
a challenge. So in the area that we are looking at in the West Baltimore area, we saw that the drug infestation is a huge challenge because of the safety of all that live there. So public safety was a big issue, and it stems from the corruption of drugs and different crimes that it's committed. So we thought that that would be something great to look at.
Great. And the preservation opportunity, preservation. Something needs to be maintained, preserved.
So we have also identified the water underneath the highway to nowhere, and we believe that it should be preserved and it should be resurfaced, and it should be we should have some type of lake, because when you look at the development of housing, a lot of people like to live around water. You know, I can tell you, like up at Reservoir Hill, the water, it's a beautiful scene, and the highway to nowhere, underneath there's a stream of water, and we would like to see it exposed. So that's one of the things that we do.
Great. Thank you, group number two.
Charter schools. We're talking about more STEM schools for our kids. So that's my two piece.
Charter schools out of.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Let's do group number three, and then group number four.
Charter schools out of that.
Three is here, four is here.
Everybody, so one opportunity,
Okay, everybody, group number three.
so one opportunity we identified is that there are so many pockets of green space, both like Harlem Park, Franklin Park, Union Square Park, there's a trail like Winds Falls Trail, and if you go farther south, there's Carroll Park, but they're not connected to each other. And there can be an interconnected network of green spaces that are easily accessible by foot, bike, and public transportation. And not just the green space, but a lot of talk about public transportation, but a lot of the public transportation is geared towards getting people out of the neighborhood. Instead of creating public transportation that's also interconnected to get people to different areas of the neighborhood so the resources can support and build on each other. So that's an opportunity of interconnection. Challenge, of course, there's a lot of vacant spaces, but this area, even if you go a little bit further north and south, has a lot of abandoned or divested commercial spaces that if they were poured into, you wouldn't even have to displace anyone. So you can add commercial spaces, invest in these commercial spaces, but also make sure that there's a social infrastructure. So not just affordable housing, but the things that make the community rich, like art spaces, gathering spaces, grocery stores, of course, theaters. So there are some even abandoned theaters that can be revitalized. Speaking of that, some of these spaces can be connected with corridors that go from making sure that this little corridor connects people. I'm just circling back to the first one. So even making sure that the spaces are kept in mind when we're thinking about people being able to be connected by foot, bike, and public transportation. I forgot the last one. What was the last one? Preservation. We talked so much about the other two. Some of these spaces, these green spaces, and these historic spaces just need to be maintained, if not used up a little bit. I think that's part. All right.
One of which was just dealing with adding additional shopping centers and economic development along the corridor. I'm realizing that there was so much that was lost during that initial phase with the highway network going in place. Are there ways that we can sort of reinvest into the community through economic development, but doing it in a way that makes sure that it's affordable housing or affordable density level increases? So making sure that we still have a community to come back to, and not allowing people to go into more gentrification where you're actually, having an improvement that's actually pushing outside of people, outside of the community. So one of the things from an opportunity standpoint is more shopping in the area, more economic development. Anything else? You guys good?
Doing great.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Okay. One of the things from a preservation standpoint, one of the areas that has been talked about quite a bit in this corridor is the ice house. And how do we do I know there's been a lot of, plans and developments that have looked at the ice house. I know there's a market that was identified at one point. Having that close proximity to the West Baltimore MARC station is a great way to have that connectivity right across the street. So how can we preserve that ice house? How can we sort of make it into something that is actual piece of the community versus just an eyesore that's there now, right? So that's one on the preservation side. And then for the challenges, one of the things that we talked about was just the inadequate sidewalks and lighting that we're seeing along the corridor. Transit is a big issue that was brought up a lot of times, throughout with our group, and the fact that even if you have stations in place, like bus stops in place, just the access and reliability of that transit is so poor that you don't really feel like you can use that for jobs or get the social programs or what have you. So being able to open up and have better transit accessibility and accessibility for pedestrian movements throughout the corridor, I think was one of the things that they talked about.
Yes.
Anything else? Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody. What it will look like in the next 10 years, they're going to share 2 similarities and 1 difference that came out of their group. So thank you so much, Jimmy.
Hi, so one opportunity is that the ditch itself, the highway to nowhere, is actually a space that could be hunted up, or, like a tunnel or something being put underneath, but the top would be a green space that could potentially be commercial space, residential space, and how, like just mixed use, as well as green space for the community. Preservation, we said that the Harlem Theater is a historic location, and it really does need improvement. If you want to take some time and go and visit the space and speak with the curators, you'll find out a lot more in the history of the Harlem Theater and how it played a big part in the neighborhood. And a challenge is, what did I write down? A challenge is just the walkability of the place. It's car-centric, and we really just needed to be more people-centric. We needed the sidewalks to be wider. We needed the roads to be more narrow, and we just needed to be a comfortable place for people to enjoy.
Excuse me, I just met the young lady when you spoke of Harlem Theater. Would somebody please do some work on Harlem Park?
Oh, yeah.
The history of Harlem Park. It's fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Fascinating. You have no idea what transpired there.
it definitely is
That's Harlem Park
both an
itself.
opportunity
Yes,
and
yes.
preservation area, all of our. And so some things that we came across were people-centric and not car-centric. Currently, that Highway to Nowhere it took away, like spaces for the communities it took away spaces for the communities to connect, for people to connect, and people left. We want people to be comfortable in their neighborhood, to be able to enjoy what's in their neighborhood. And so we want the neighborhood to be coveted. We want the homes to be, at their top tier, this is our 10-year, goal, what people will want. We want it to be a walk-free community. We want people to enjoy just being in the neighborhood, lighted streets, green spaces, wide sidewalks, slow traffic. And we want commerce, so we want to be able to walk out our home and just walk a block or two, and there'll be stores and, like grocery stores and just everything that you need. Yeah, mom and pop restaurants and like cafes and lounges.
So I don't want to deny store.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much. Was there something? Yes.
So I think you asked, did you
Yeah,
ask?
it was in 10 years, and so it's 2 similarities and 1 difference?
Yeah, the difference.
That involved?
I think the difference for us, and actually we had mostly similarities, but I think a big thing is because this has been a car-centric area, there's difference of perspective of whether traffic should still be prioritized, like still moving cars through the area, versus prioritizing people and therefore either slowing down cars or making it harder. Either people have to go out of the way or other things like that. And that was a difference kind of within our group. And I think that there's probably a difference of perspective here in other groups too.
That's great. Thank you all so much. Thanks. Group number 5 will go this way, and group number 4 will offer from their visioning exercise 2 similarities that evolved, and then 1 difference. We'll go from 4 to 3.
Okay, so getting into our, what do you see in the next 10 years? Some of the things that we mentioned before, really just activating the space. Having a place where you could actually live in the community and actually thrive within the community. So having grocery stores, markets, laundromats in the area, cleaners, like everything that you just day-to-day activity, but here, and don't have to travel so far to get there. Maybe a local hardware store, I think was mentioned there. And just being able to activate the spaces, that's office spaces, that increased density, having mixed use, maybe it's commercial downstairs and residential upstairs. So just really trying to utilize this space in a way that is effective, that you're able to really, like I said, activate and really galvanize growth within the community. And I think another similarity that we were seeing with a lot of the communication that we were having here on the group is just that affordable housing piece. We touched on that a little bit before, but that is such a main thing for the group here was, community-led development. I think there was concern with not looking for like a hopped-in sort of takeover or something like that, but something that's more locally led, community-based, that can really help the community thrive and grow. Has been something that we definitely saw there. And from a different standpoint, I think the one thing that was also mentioned that maybe different than what we were carrying across the board was also having more recreational opportunities for the kids. Having, if it's a rec center or just even, I think there was a comment about having, like outdoor pools or something that just kind of get people out the street, skate park. Roller skate park. So I think those are the things we wanted. I'm sorry, was there anything else, Ruth, that I may have missed?
No, good.
Group number 3.
Infrastructure to support communities investing back in their own community. And the similarity to that is people want more minority businesses. They wanted food markets there, different deserts. They wanted to, walk areas, play-lit areas, as well as being able to have a thriving community, not just surviving, but thriving community. We didn't have any differences. We all agreed that it was important for us to have a community that was not just engaged, but on the up, but you're building community to be able to thrive. Yeah, that's what it is. There's one thing that this other group two talked about that came up with it, is that when things are developing with the natural environment and ecosystem is fine, because there are a lot of spring in the movie that people just threw houses on top of, and now there's lots of problems about water coming up. So that as things are developing, you're keeping the ecosystem in mind and trying to have a healthy, balanced relationship with it. And making sure, and one of the things, the key that I didn't say last time, is that there's such rich cultural and ethnic diversity and such rich history here, and making sure as things are being developed, that the people, the cultures and ethnicities that are here that make it feel special, even with reaching being divested, they are still allowed to be here and grow here.
Finishing that sentence.
Highway to Nowhere would be a West Baltimore March station that is multimodal, and it would be a flagship station and not just another platform that has no amenities. We would like to see it in an upscale, fashionable way that would become an economical driving force for the entire community of Baltimore, and not just West Baltimore, but the entire city, because it has that type of potential. It can tie into the health department, the health systems of Baltimore, Johns Hopkins, all of the Walter Reeds in Washington, D.C., and also it would give us a brand that we could be proud of. And that was one of the things that we thought was very important to the community in 10 years. And one other thing that we thought was very important too was we wanted to see a food, because West Baltimore has actually been said to be considered a food desert. But we would like to see West Baltimore become more than just a marketplace or a food grocery store. We'd like for it to be something that's futuristic, such as a hydroponic growth facility that could bring in lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, and all of the essentials that we need to live.
Real cucumber.
And also, if you just look at it in a hydroponic way, we have one of the best professors here in Baltimore, Maryland. His name is Dr. Zor, Professor Zor. And Professor Zor has been around the United States creating crab hatcheries. And we have the opportunity to utilize his skill set that we can also infuse into a hydroponic system, a crab hatchery that can grow crabs that we could replenish the Chesapeake Bay with, and also grow crabs for consumption for the people of Baltimore, and that is one of their thriving Maryland symbols. And if you look at it, you can also do like different fisheries, you know, and this is all done through hydroponics off into the, we have it right here now downtown, so that's something that could be put into a neighborhood that could feed an entire city, not just one community, but an entire city. So that would be something that would be vital. And one thing that was a little bit different, right? That's the next?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Something that we disagreed on. Well, the highway to nowhere, we kind of like see it as a opportunity to get rid of the traffic. But then when we looked at it, some people were against that. Some people want to maintain that high velocity, that speed, that quickness from home to work. And so we wanted to figure out a way to integrate the highway so it has 6 lanes and 3 on each side. And then, you know, you also have, you want to integrate the red line, whatever that may be, into the highway to nowhere and have it all connect with the West Baltimore March station. So all of these things are important, so we have to figure out how we can all live together. That's one of the most important things.
Keep it training on the We'll do group number one, that exercise, two similarities.
Things that we saw as a similarity in listening to everybody's comments. The focus was a lot on helping our neighborhoods to thrive and having it so that you don't have to leave your neighborhood, so having all of these amenities available, whether it's across the street or you maybe have to walk a couple of blocks as it was in the past. So some of the things that we focused on is how do we first retain our Baltimore residents, and also having the amenities and things that's here that makes people want to move into our neighborhoods. So making sure that that working class, that middle class, that affordability is available, especially for our public service people. Even in the medical field, they can't afford to live in our neighborhoods because of the high cost of the rents and the home ownership opportunity. So making sure that we have that affordability and putting a focus in those areas. The highway to nowhere. So I was sharing with our group that I sat in a community meeting at the old Harlem Theater, where we had brought in an economist. And the economist showed us a PowerPoint, and it was turning this stretch of land into a transportation hub that would incorporate the train, what is that up there? The Metro, the MARC train. Also, if we're gonna have the light rails, but we're also talking about the regular buses, cars, Uber, Lyft, bikes, being able to have all of that as a transportation hub, as well as looking at it from as an airport. Where you have all of the different types of restaurants and businesses, that people can access, which will provide the jobs and opportunity. And then because it's so long with the green space, you can have park. Because people there, you can have some space, for people to have the skate park, we have the dirt bike, things that's gonna incorporate our young people and giving them those opportunities right here. And I looked at it as that divide. That highway to nowhere divided our communities. And so this is an opportunity to build that bridge of bringing all of us, even having a supermarket, down on that space as well. So having things that we know that the majority of us use every day and being able to have it in that location.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, everybody. One more group. It looks like I was facilitating group number one. Economic development and jobs and reliable public transit kind of rose to the top as our top two themes based on the previous work. I'm going to ask David, he was our scribe, what things did we miss here? Which things were missed here? What other things did group one identify? And then we'll go to group two with that same question, kind of what your top two things were, and then what were some of the things that were missed.
If I could, maybe I'll try to group it into two, because I think we brainstormed, but I think there's one dominant theme that's really about community that really showed through Ms. Paulette and Sonia, other members of our team. But the ones that I'll get to the community group last, but the ones that are not sort of in the community theme are things like food access was big for some people. There's, again, the idea of the transport hub and making sure we capture that as a theme. And a high-level one that's somewhat powerful is the identity and something that really inspires people. Also, we talked about digital equity and we talked about energy alternatives and even somehow using this corridor to bring back a resource that I understand that we have is the steam that used to flow through Baltimore's streets to power something or to provide heat to some of the homes. But for the community group, we talked about things like focusing on senior activities, space for children, state-of-the-art playground. We talked about even bringing back displaced people from the 60s and 70s when the highway was constructed. We also talked about community-led programs, community-led development. As part of that, talked about community rooms, community-wide energy alternatives came up again. And so those are some of the things that we want to make sure are captured from the themes from earlier.
Key factors, and it's economic development and jobs. And when we think about the economics, and our second choice, our second most important part was reliable public transportation, and they go hand in hand. And the reason why is because in West Baltimore we have one of the greatest economical driving forces that could be presented to us at this time, which is the actual MARC station. It is a 27-minute ride from MARC station to Washington, D.C. Union Station. And if we got the state to endorse Limited Express, which get us to Washington, D.C. in an approximate 27 minutes. That is really record-breaking and a very good economic driving force for us. And when you look at the economy and the economics, it gives us access to a lot of government jobs that we can go to and come home from. And we have the opportunity where when you look at development and the word development, and we think about in DC, the housing stock in DC is $1.275 million to own a house in DC. But in Baltimore and West Baltimore, you could own a home for $250,000, $225,000. So that is an opportunity that we can capitalize off of. And if we do a TOD development and tie it all in together, and we create a greater living quarters for people, we will have a greater density. And this would actually give us a better opportunity in the West Baltimore corridor. So that's two of the things that are most important.
They don't want to look like these.
Let's get group number 3.
As far as some of these factors, economic development, job has been talked about, of course. As I'm thinking, maybe the precursor to that needs to be training. That's something we kind of harped on. Really making sure that the people in these neighborhoods are trained to be involved in some of this development, some of these jobs that they become. Affordable housing, keeping them in there, not displacing them. Food security is a big thing, having a grocer. And social infrastructure, your parks, your libraries, community centers, the places that give people the chance to actually form that solidarity, common ground that makes the community. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Back. So
They have such confidence.
I guess so. So what we're seeing is there's probably about 3 that I thought were really compelling coming out of our group. One was investment in affordable housing. We mentioned that before in some of our early discussions. Economic development, which can tend to go hand in hand with that. One of the items that I know Group 2 mentioned that we didn't mention that actually has come up multiple times is that TOD. And looking for ways to kind of increase the density within these areas in a very smart and informative way. And then the other thing was just that reliability of public transit. Once again, the group did mention the access to the MARC station, Amtrak. I mean, it's all right there, and why not be able to build upon that through improved public transit?
So our top theme of what's been identified, we had a lot of agreement about, all these things are important. I think in terms of what we saw as missing, we talked about repopulation, especially in light of the fact that it was depopulated intentionally because of these, destructive racist decisions. And so the need to repopulate and bring people back. And along with that too, is having a reparational lens to all of this, is recognizing that it's not just starting from scratch. There's, very real harms that have been committed, and the people who either they lost wealth because of the displacement, or they lost business opportunities, or people who live in the neighborhood who have suffered, like there needs to be repair in some way, not just getting rid of it, but actually like, either wealth opportunities, like, or actually being able to get property back, along this area. I think it needs to not just be a development conversation, but a reparations conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Come on, big round of applause for all the words. Great word. Great word. Thank you all so much for your input. Thursday, rainy night. This shows how much you all care about your communities, that you've hung in here with us. We're gonna close out. Stu and Tabby are gonna offer some closing remarks as we move toward our close. Stu?
Thanks.